Thank you for all coming today. We're going to do the history of Flat Earth, which is a presentation I do. We've noticed that we've got a lot of new members each time, and this would be designed to bring them up to speed. For those of you who've seen it or know about it, I'm sorry, but it's also a good refresher. About 8 years ago, 8.5 years ago, I stumbled onto this Flat Earth. Okay, we stumbled onto Flat Earth. I didn't understand it. 8.5 years ago, it blew my mind away, the same as it's done for most of you. And I know there's a lot of new people here, so hopefully this presentation will give you the basics and the things that to do. Oh, come on, speaker. Right, before we start, I'd like to point out everything that you see in this presentation, you can fully research yourself. And I would say, don't take my word for it, go and look for yourselves. We'll do some questions and answers afterwards if you like. I'll try and get through it as quick as I can. It's about 1 hour and a quarter. So, let's see. Let's see this presentation for this new Truth and Reality. Look at that. Now, Truth and Reality, when we use our 5 senses to shape out our reality and surroundings. For example, if you were dropped on this plane, you would not know straight away that you're moving or spinning. You would not notice that. So we sort of use our senses to get an understanding of our world around us. Truth, however, well, that's something we take for granted by the men in power who wear the white coats of academia that judge us all. And more easily these days with the television. You know, we believe things on the television that we've never experienced for ourselves. Oh, come on! Change mics and hope for the best. Sometimes people like to hold on to the comfortable lies rather than the unpleasant truths. And for some of you, if you're new to the subject, you may experience something called cognitive dissonance, which is literally where people hold a core belief, a strong belief that they've been programmed with or taught about, and they've received new information for the first time which goes against that core belief, and it causes something called cognitive dissonance. It's a real neurological response. With this in mind, this is where most people think they live. So if we all live here, how many people think we do live on a globe here? How many people think we live on a globe? Are there any globe people here? No, right. Honestly, we need a new mic. At this point, I normally tell people who are globers, obviously if this is where you live, we must know something about it, right? So, you know, I ask a question and I say to people, how big is it? And of course, nobody puts their hand up because they don't know. So I ask, how fast does it rotate? And again, nobody will know those things, right? Because you believe in a globe that you know nothing about. You also ask one of those things, how fast is it moving? Because you're taught that it moves at 66,000 miles an hour around the sun, right? Absolutely insane. The current model is this model, okay? This is the current model that they want you to believe. That the sun is flying through an endless void forever, and everything in its wake is being taken with it, running around, insane. Okay, that's what they think you should believe. So have we been lied to? Well, of course we have. We've just gone through COVID. We've just gone through everything. We know that they lie. We also know that this microphone is rubbish. But, the main thing is simple things people should know about their belief system, but they don't. They know nothing about it at all. So, back to the day. Why is it flat? Well, every single culture back in the day knew that their Earth was flat. All their various cosmologies, all their geographical land masses were roughly the same. They believed a flat, stationary, disc-shaped plane. This is commonly known as the flat Earth, picture of the azimuthal equidistant map. All ancient cultures believe the North Pole was the magnetic centre, directly in the middle of the flat Earth. Polaris is situated above that. It's the magnetic North Pole, and it's the only star in the sky that does never move. Remember that, it never ever moves. Now, these cultures believe that the stars came in two kinds. We had the fixed and the wandering stars. The fixed stars, of course, were called fixed stars because they stay in their relative positions night after night forever. And of course, the wandering stars, or planets as we call them, they take on quite a different and unique path. You've got, for example, Venus has an 11-year cycle, and in that 11 years, it makes the flower of life. Each of the planets have their own orbit, and they make a specific cymatic pattern. The ancients also thought the sun and the moon were the same size. They revolved around us in the sky, and they were much closer than we're told they are. They understood the sun to be a warm, antiseptic, growing and nurturing light, and of course, the moon is completely opposite. The yin-yang symbol, by the way, it's not just a symbol to show sun and moon. If you measure the sun's shadow on a flat Earth from winter solstice right the way through to winter solstice, it literally makes that shadow pattern on our plane. Okay, the ancients, this is how they thought the sun worked. They said that the sun began its journey at the Tropic of Capricorn when it's our winter solstice, which is the outermost yellow tropic. Now, for the next 3 months every day, the sun slightly narrows its path. It slows its speed until the spring equinox, where it moves from the Tropic of Capricorn over to the equator. Now, tighter and slower still for the next 3 months, every day the sun continues to slightly narrow its path and slow its speed until it reaches our summer solstice, which is the Tropic of Cancer. Now, this is where the sun makes its smallest and slowest circle. That's why we have a lot of light, because it's only going a very small circle, so we see the sun's light more in our summer. Now, what happens is every 3 monthly cycles after that, it goes back out, hits the equator, then the Tropic of Capricorn, and the whole thing happens again. Every year, it can be measured, it can be tested. So for centuries, you have to think, throughout all of existence, ancient man knew the Earth to be the centre of the universe, to which all the stars, sun and moon, all revolved around a motionless fixed plane in a dome-like pattern. Some cultures believed in a literal physical solid dome or a firmament to which the stars were attached, and other cultures mythologized the centre point, magnetic pole was a tree of life, and the stars were the branches. So, ancient people, let me look. So, maps here. This is how old the flat Earth is. It's since the time of creation. Many, many, many maps. This is 1892, New Standard Map of the World. This particular map was supposedly coming out of a Tibetan monastery over 1,000 years old, showing our flat Earth in the middle with further lands. Now, it's very difficult. No one sort of knows what lies beyond the further lands, because we are prevented from doing so, as I'm sure you're all aware, by the Antarctic Treaty. However, there are some things we can confirm from the ancients. Firstly, we can confirm the ice walls. We can confirm that there's a 200-foot ice wall, the ice shelf. We can also confirm that Polaris never moves. Never has, as depicted by loads of star trail photographs. You can do all this yourself. Now, if you don't know where Polaris is, you know where the plough is, everybody's seen it. Take that last right hand nodule, look straight up, that's Polaris, never moves. And of course we can confirm that the ancients, the way the sun and the moon works, following their patterns, we can test and measure it. And of course lastly, we know it doesn't move. It's completely motionless as far as the eye can see, and the horizon remains perfectly flat. Another fun fact, This is where you go, this is at ground, or 20 feet up, look at the horizon. 10,000 feet up, look at the horizon. 33,000 feet up, look at the horizon. It will always rise to your eye level, always. And that can only ever happen on a flat plane. Simple horizon test, look at the left, that's what you should see, but you don't, you never see that. So that kind of perspective that you're looking at is only possible with a flat plane. Where are we going? In fact, to be fair, there's no scientific test or measurement for curvature. Nothing at all. Some have proven to be the opposite, some have shown it doesn't move, most of the things show that it's completely flat. The flat Earth is measured flat, you have to understand that. So let's get back to the history. Sorry, some of you think you can see curvature from an aeroplane window. You can't. We had this thing on Saturday, didn't we, Sam? Someone said to me, you can see a curvature from 30,000 feet for a plane. And I said, you can't. She said, you definitely can. So I showed her this picture and explained it to her. Fisheye lenses, curved windows, 3-ply plastic. It's flat. Anyway, Pythagoras. Around 500 BC, he was considered to be the first legitimate Freemason. He's fully entrenched in the mystery schools of Greece. So if you don't know anything other than what your school has taught you about Pythagoras, go and research him. You'll find he's it's very occultish. Now he explained that if the Earth was turning, then the stars and the heavenly bodies could easily be explained, right? The way they move. So if we're moving, that would make a good sense. But that never really gained any traction for a couple of thousand years outside of Greece, to be fair. Now, next up, Aristotle, 400 BC. He thought the Earth was round because he could see ships disappear over the horizon, right? Now, obviously, this is a widely held proof today of a globe Earth. Yeah, simple binoculars, a telescope, anything you like, will bring it straight back into view, hole first. Now, proving that there's not a globe, but it's rather the end of your eye's perspective to see. That's all it is. You also have to see sometimes when you're looking out from the sea and you're looking at the Isle of Wight, you can't see it because there's also a lot of vapour, water vapour, and atmosphere that you have to get through as well. Okay, next up. Hold on a minute. This is what I'm talking about, ships over the horizon. There's no way your eye can rectify that anyway. You'll see it looking like it's going over the horizon. It's not. And this is miles away. The optics for cameras and telescopes is far out past the 1960s or 1916 version of this Earth that they want us to believe. Okay, next up, Eratosthenes, 250 BC, geographer, mathematician. He tells of an experiment which claimed as proof of a spherical Earth. In a place called Syene, now Aswan in Egypt, he knew that at solar noon, the sun would be over his head and it would not cast a shadow in his well. Now, his friend was 575 miles away, so I don't know, maybe they used the ancient cell phones that they had back in the day. So what he did is he waited for the sun to come round and simultaneously measure an angle on a wall 575 miles away to give you a 7.2 angle, times it round 360 degrees. There you go, it's a globe Earth. Problem was, they assumed incorrect distances for the sun, and all sunlight, they say, comes in parallel, which obviously it doesn't. And it turns out, because we know the sun moves, the solar noon was 12 minutes before it actually reached Syene. So in Alexandria, he'd already had his solar noon. It never worked. Ridiculous. There's no physical record of this even taking place. It's just something you're programmed with. And of course, that experiment was completely ridiculous with the invention of this beautiful, beautiful flat Earth nautical sextant. Using sextants, plane trigonometry, you can measure the sun's angle at 2 points on Earth simultaneously. Once you factor in their distances with each other, you can use a bit of Pythagorean maths, and it can reveal both the height and the dimension of it. Now, using this method, many sailors, many times, have revealed that the sun is about 3,000 miles away and about 32 miles in diameter. Here we go. It's fairly obvious when you see the sun that the light doesn't come in parallel. Forget what they say about convergence, forget what they say about the way the sun should come in. It doesn't. When you follow these rays back up, that's where the sun is. It's logical, it's sensible, it proves where the sun is. You'll also see this sometimes, which is crepuscular rays. That could never happen on a globe Earth. It could never happen with the sun 93 million miles away, because they tell you that it all comes in parallel. It doesn't, it's small and close. You look here, there's plenty of examples of this. Webcam footage for hot air balloons that we send up, or weather balloons, 120,000 feet, and you'll actually see the hot spot of the sun on the cloud there. It's not 93 million miles away at all. There's another one there. Now, some people also say, if it's that far away, you'll never see a change in angular size of the sun. Well, you do. Look at it. You can see it there. The further it goes away, the smaller it becomes, like anything else. To be fair, after Eratosthenes, the globe Earth theories all but vanished for nearly 2,000 years. Everyone was happy knowing it was a flat Earth, planting their crops, doing everything fine. Till this guy come along, Portuguese chap named Ferdinand Magellan, claimed to sail around the world. He went from east to west, okay? This is very, very important, east to west. Everybody can sail around the world east to west. What you do is you align, when you're doing nautical sailing or anything like that, you align your compasses to north. So every time you align it to north and you're going left or right, east and west become circles. Simple as that. So anyone can sail around the world, millions have done it. You can't do it from north to south. No one's ever done it from north to south, because that's north. Everywhere away from north is south. So if you're going to go from here and go down there, you've got to go across the ice wall and God knows where, and then come back over here. Never been done, never happened. No one has ever done it north to south. So that tells you something. Now, Antarctica obviously being patrolled by the military under the orders of the United Nations. You've seen this logo, you've all seen it, and you've all seen the flat Earth map. They hide these things in plain sight. The American seismic people use it, international maritime people use it. They all use it and shove it in your face. Now, cracking on, 1543. This is Nicholas Copernicus, or a picture of him. Ugly man. I don't even know where to go with it. But he released a book in 1543. He was a Freemason, by the way, of course. Released a book a few days before he died called On the Revolution of Celestial Spheres. And he fancifully postulated that the heliocentric sun-centered universe by Pythagoras was real. So his book told of a spinning globe, tilting, wobbling, moving, and it was questioned and laughed at by his peers. One of those peers was Tycho Brahe. Now, yeah, what a moustache, right? They didn't muck about in those days. Now, Tycho Brahe was an observational earther. He did some real-world observations, real-world experiments, and he was afforded the lavish luxury by, who was it? Rudolph, I think. King Rudolph III. Rudolph II, sorry. He funded this lavish astronomical observatory so he could make his real-world calculations. However, this chap, Johannes Kepler, Freemason, was taken on as his apprentice. They obviously, Kepler was a student of the sun-centered heliocentric model, and it was said that Kepler and Brahe had many arguments about this stuff, which led to him being fired. And a year later, much grovelling ensued, and he was taken back on. 1 month after he was taken back on, Tycho Brahe mysteriously died. I think Kepler murdered him, so did most people. And of course that meant Kepler became the leading astrologer for the royal court. So all of the information that he now wanted to portray on the public, he could easily do it. But don't knock Copernicus, because he had numbers. Anyone who has numbers Got to be clean. He thought the sun was 12,376,000 miles away. There you go. In 1608, another challenger to the flat stationary plane was an Italian chap called Galileo. He makes telescopes, and he's also famed for his writings about the tides. Now, the pull of the water to make the tides was constantly moving in an upward direction and spinning around the sun. Clearly ridiculous. Now, this, he said, caused the movements of the tides in the water. Sadly, if you think about it logically, when you have a moon and you have one moon, you have one tide, or you should. Most places have 2, 3, 4 and 5 tides, all over the place. 2 tides is uncommon, 3 and 4 are very common. Which means, if the moon had anything to do with it, you'd have to see it circle around 3 or 4 times a day. It doesn't, it has nothing to do with the tides at all. It did, however, because he made telescopes, made Aristotle look a bit stupid about the ships going over the horizon 2,000 years before. Now, we're getting on to it. 1687, this fella, Sir Isaac Newton. He wrote a book called Principia Mathematica, which he presented to the world his idea of gravity for the first time. Now, for many years, the idea of a spinning ball through space at breakneck speed, whilst turning faster than the speed of sound, became a joke within the scientific community. So in order to counter this, he had to invent something. So he invented gravity. Just before we go into gravity, some people say that gravity is this thing where it pulls everything into the centre of this ridiculous ball. Now, just quickly, and we just had this conversation, some people say, what's on the other side? What's on the other side of the flat earth? We don't know, nobody knows. What we can tell you is, we've only ever drilled down 7.6 miles into our earth. That's the furthest we've gone. So when you see things like this, with your core and 3,000 kilometres, 5,000, it's complete cartoon fiction. This is complete lie rubbish. Because we don't know, we've only ever gone down 8 miles. And the best ground penetrating radar is 200 feet. That's it. So they lie. They lie. Anyway, back to gravity. This is what you'll see. Gravity is merely density and buoyancy. It's not the very thing that keeps all the planets and the suns in their perfect orbits from crashing into each other because one has a larger mass than the other. Nothing is untrue as that. You'll find here that you've got a ping pong ball, you've got nothing. Gravity's not pulling through any of that stuff for any of those objects. And the force, they even tell you gravity is a really weak force. The force of electrostatics is 10 to the 20th power more than supposed gravity. But they will always point to gravity to make things go down or use some nonsense with it. However, what you'll find, if an object is heavier than the medium it surrounds, it will fall down. Much like rainwater in the sky, the air can't hold it. And if it's lighter, it goes up. Again, water has the medium air bubbles, okay? There's no force pulling those air bubbles down. There's no force pulling the clouds down. 10,000 ton, airships, they don't pull them down. Ships don't get sucked to the bottom of the sea. It's a lie. And of course, he made up gravity so much, they later realised the calculation all led to a singularity where it squashed everything into oblivion. So to do that, they made up this thing called dark energy. Again, it's made up, which they thought was anti-gravity. And of course, when the calculations showed that, it showed that it would be forever expanding and rip their space and their time apart. So both rubbish, it's all one imaginary psyop. Gravity does not exist. He did have numbers though. He did have numbers. He thought the sun, if it was 28 million or 54 million miles away, made no difference. There you go. Okay, and there you go. If it fell in the water, it would come back up. And what calculation did he use for the apple still on the tree? Come on. So, Sir Isaac knew nothing. And here you have within this time frame of 500 years, you have a 100 million miles difference in science of where the sun is. They haven't got a clue, they don't know. Here we go. In 1773, Captain Cook, first man to reach the Antarctic ice wall. Now, Antarctica is supposed to be an island on the bottom of a spinning ball here in the shape of a brain, which is completely made up. This is not real in any way, shape or form. Now, it's supposed to be 12,000 miles in circumference. The Captain Cook in 1773 sailed 60,000 miles around what he thought, we had no idea, but 60,000 miles is clearly 3 times bigger than what they tell you the Earth is. And he couldn't find an inlet, so he just kept going. In 1783, the hot air balloon was invented for the first time in recorded history, so people could float miles above the Earth's surface to see for themselves, once and for all, the Earth was flat and not a globe. And of course, it's a flat plane as far as the eye can see. Moving on, 1797, Henry Cavendish, Freemason, wealthy grandson of the Duke of Devonshire, created an experiment which he claimed successfully proved the existence of gravity, measured its constant, and provided accurate figures for the masses, the weights of Earth, Sun, Moon, and all the planets. Guess how he did this? Like that. He put 2 balances, 2 lead balls on a torsion balance in his shed. He wasn't even in the shed, according to history. He was outside looking at it through a telescope to any observation he could make for movement. And with that, he created all that. He created everything with just simple movements of lead balls. That's what they did. And it's still widely used. They still reference this as a proof. It's ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. This guy, 1851. Frenchman, Leon Foucault. I think that's how you spell it. Say again. Oh, Foucault, okay. Foucault as well. Well, he did an equally ridiculous experiment, as Cavendish did, by proclaiming that the Earth was indeed spinning and could be proven by the swing of a pendulum. Now, when you go into the Natural History Museum, you have to start it off. It's not something that is natural. It's started off. There's motors, there's batteries, it does it. There's a video of a guy in where they literally do the Foucault pendulum. It was faulty. It doesn't work. You have to start it off. Otherwise, all the cranes, all the plumb bobs, they'd all be doing this. They don't. So when you logically think about it, it's the most ridiculous thing if you think a pendulum proves that the Earth spins. Anyway, moving on. 1864, a book called Zetetic Astronomy was written and published by this gentleman. His name is Samuel Rowbotham. He was an inventor and an author. He's most famed for his Bedford level experiments, among others, in which he performed a series of experiments and he travelled down to Cambridge, where there's a 20-mile canal called the Old Bedford, which passes through a straight line of fernlands known as Bedford Level. There you go, there it is. Now, spherical trigonometry dictates that all surface of all standing waters must curve. This is what they teach you, that it must curve a measurable 8 inches per mile squared. Now, obviously, he set his flags for 6 miles, 1 every mile. His telescope was 8 inches above the water. If you believe a globe Earth, you should have seen the top one. Obviously you don't. You see the bottom one. And at 6 miles, he saw the last flag, proving that it's a straight, flat plane. This is unbelievable. In 1871, Freemason and Royal Astronomical Society President George Airy. Now he devised an experiment that he thought would silence these crazy flat earthers once and for all. And it was to do with filling his telescope with water to slow the light down so it could be measured. And then it would tell him how far he'd have to move his telescope in order to let the starlight in. Well, obviously he found the starlight was going in there already without him moving it, and it was a real problem for them. It showed that the sky moved and not the Earth. The actual experiment is called Airy's failure, if you ever want to go and have a look. Now, Some more science people trying to prove it. In 1887, American physicists Albert Michelson and Edward Morley performed an experiment to determine Earth's speed through space. Now, they passed a light through a pathway on a very rough, dodgy experiment. And what they should have done, the light travelling with the Earth should have taken longer to return than the light travelling at right angles to it. Turns out, it didn't. It made no difference at all. Therefore, there's no detection of Earth motion in their experiments at all. 1900. By this time, the globe model was almost dead. Okay, nobody wanted it. No one knew about it. It was just this thing. Everybody understood it was a flat plane. But there are plenty of newspaper articles. If you ever go and do the research and you go into their database and you type in flat Earth 1800s or something, you can look at all their reference stuff. Tons of it. Tons of stuff about flat Earth in all the press way back in the day. This one in 1900 says, "It is painful to read that Sir John Gorse, the head of the British Educational Department, is in serious trouble and has been threatened by Mr. Ebenezer Breach and other taxpayers of the city of Portsmouth in the Kingdom of England. With the prosecution under Impostors Act, it seems that the schools of Portsmouth have been teaching the damnable and heretical doctrine that the earth is a sphere." So even back then, it was a nonsense. It was completely insane. Now, 1903, Wright brothers. Aeroplanes were made, excellent. And when hot air balloons were first invented, people were told the reason they cannot simply float in the air and wait for the ground to come is because you are taught that gravity, pretend gravity, somehow sticks the entire atmosphere to a spinning ball so uniformly you can't feel it, test it or measure it. But that's what you have to believe. And of course, by the time decent aeroplanes were made that could go faster than the alleged 700 or 800 mile an hour spin of the Earth, it was fairly obvious that it doesn't spin, it doesn't move. Now, sticking with planes. Flight routes prove a flat Earth, simple as that. Now, if the Earth was a ball and they tell us that Antarctica, this is what they tell us, it's too cold to fly over, whatever. The only logical way, for example, to fly from Sydney to Santiago, as you can see there, would be a straight shot across the bottom. Straight shot. On a globe, right? But it's not. If you look to the right, it's because it's in a straight line on a flat Earth map. Planes don't go from the southern hemisphere, spend £1 million to the northern hemisphere, then travel twice the distance down to the southern hemisphere. That's not how planes work. They go in the straightest line they can possibly go. And as you see here, on the way from Australia, the way it's worked, straight over to there. It's a long journey, but it's a straight line. Very similar to this one, Johannesburg to Perth. They've obviously gone to Dubai to pick up people, but rather than go from the southern hemisphere to the northern, then twice the distance back down to the southern, they would just follow a general straight flight path. Now, a decade had passed. Flat Earth cosmology was part of the world until this chap came along. Enter Albert Einstein. He wrote his theory on general relativity in 1916, and in one fell swoop, a lot of marketing campaign, television was just coming in then. The whole world realised that this man, the way they put him forward, was the god of science. So the globe, that's right, the globe was firmly put back into the psyche of people in 1916. The problem is, he's a scumbag. He is a proper scumbag. As you can see, he's a cross-dresser. They used to call him Abby. He's a Zionist media fraud, plagiarist. He paid off his first wife with his Nobel Prize money, and he married his cousin and a couple of others. He had a little harem he used to do. Total fraud. Total fraud. Anyway, on your bum. 1927, Big Bang Theory. First postulated by this chap. A Roman Catholic Jesuit priest by the name of Jorge Lamartre, which no one's heard of. Now, please bear in mind the Big Bang Theory is something that science tells you happened some time ago, when there was literally nothing, and then all of a sudden For no reason, it exploded and created everything. Obviously, you can't test and measure it, but that's what you are taught to believe. And it came from this chap. God knows where he got that from. Oh, maybe from me. Who knows? Absolute nightmare. We move on to 1931. This guy is not Arsene Wenger, just before you go. He was a physicist, a Swiss physicist and an inventor called Augustus Piccard. Now, he was known for his record-breaking balloon flights in the higher reaches of our atmosphere, and in an article in a popular science magazine in 1931, it describes their 9 miles journey fraught with leaks in their big aluminium balloon. I have no idea what's happened here. His wife and kids have come in, they want to do a photo shop, they're the only two without hats. What do? You get the nearest bin, you stick it on your head, and we'll have the photo. But what you do find is in this popular mechanics magazine that he said it seemed a flat disc with an upturned edge. I don't know if that's true, that's what's quoted in the magazines. Now, it all gets a little bit strange now. Everything seemed to be fine at that point. The next decade or so, flat Earth was still being discussed, still being taught, still being lectured. Second World War breaks out, and it's time for terrifying rockets such as the V2 that terrified most of the populations in Europe and across the plate. Now, this is where it all starts getting a little bit strange. Operation Paperclip. From 1945 to 1955, it granted nearly 1,000 SS German scientists and American citizenship. You all know that they came in through South America and then ended up coming up. Now, most of these people went into the military-industrial complex. Most went to NASA, the CIA, MK Ultra. Now, one of these officers in particular we want to talk about is a chap called Werner von Braun. Now, if you're a flat earther, you've done your research, you know what it is. I'm not going to talk about it now. Very interesting. This is the grandfather of rocket technology for the Apollo program. For the V2 rocket, that's his gravestone. Right? No big monument, nothing. But it's very telling. It says Psalms 19:1, and we'll come back to that perhaps a bit later on. 1946, Operation High Jump took place, led by Admiral Richard Byrd. Now, Admiral Richard Byrd was an American naval officer who specialised in exploration. He was a recipient of the Medal of Honor twice. He was an aviator, a polar explorer, and he'd been going to Antarctica for 20 years before that. His first expedition there was 1928. Now, many believe, as the name suggests, that they went over that 200-foot ice wall for the first time. This wasn't an ordinary thing. They had 4,500 men went, 13 odd ships, 35 aircraft, and a whole platoon of people went. So something strange definitely going on in Antarctica. Moving on, 1957. Ford Cortina aerial and a toilet thing. But it turns out Russia were alleged to have launched this first satellite in space. The word satellite was first theorised as something to be in space by Arthur C. Clarke. We'll know him, he used to do this straight away, in 1945. Now, the fun thing about satellites is that there's supposed to be at least 20,000 that are circling our pretend globe, none of which you can see at all. None of which you can see. But they do operate in temperatures upwards of 4,500 degrees in the thermosphere. Really, really hot. The problem is with that, the metals used in satellites all burn way before then. They all melt way before then. For example, aluminium, gold, titanium have melting points of 1,000, 1,900 and 2,200 degrees. They would all melt. All satellites would melt and completely go crash into each other. The problem is, we know what satellites are. We know how they're doing. There's nothing that goes around a globe, none of that. This is what your satellites are. You've seen them on the telly as well. NASA, by the way, are the biggest importers of helium in the entire world. So, because they send a lot up. The Decca and the RAN system, before satellites were even thought of, were ground-based systems that worked perfectly well all across the plane before stupid satellites came in. Nowadays, of course, fibre optics and internet is 97% of all your internet is undersea cables. Gigantic cell towers triangulate GPS signals, and ionospheric propagation allows radio waves to be bounced. So everything is ground-based. Nothing up there is satellite-based, as it were. You don't have a satellite that goes up. You don't have your phone signal that goes right up in the sky, then comes all the way down and then goes somewhere else. It doesn't work like that. You have towers. You have microwave towers. You've seen them. You've seen all the 5G towers. You've seen them everywhere. They are line of sight, and that's how your communications work. Now, 1958, starting to get very weird. Operation Deep Freeze 2, conducted by our chap, Admiral Richard Byrd. There he is. This was the same year that NASA was formed, 1958. 1 year later, 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was put in place. So all taking place in a very short space of time at the same time raises all the red flags, of course. Now, NASA, oh my good Lord. We'll come to them in a minute. NASA was formed in 1958. This is what Admiral Richard Byrd had to say in the early 60s. He died, I think, 3 months after this was made.
These are the days when, by buying a ticket on a commercial airline, you can fly across the North Pole and drink a cocktail at the same time. Only 3 score or more years ago, about 35 years ago, our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really useful, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing.
Quite astonishing indeed. A land bigger than the United States that no one has seen. You tell me why they got the Antarctic Treaty in place. What could be going on in Antarctica? Expeditions, what can they be? Had it enabled mankind to find further lands, or was the firmament dome edge, as our ancestors said, the actual thing? Maybe both, we don't know. This, however, is the Antarctic Treaty Room. This is where they sign every year this dodgy treaty that stops everyone going past the 60th South parallel. Now, it was signed in Washington, 1st of December 1959, by 12 original countries, whose scientists had been going there at the behest of a few people because they knew something was dodgy. It was ratified in 1961, and it's still in place to this day. This treaty doesn't even get renewed until 2047. It's the longest treaty that's ever been made by anyone. And now every single country, all the World Economic people, all of those nasty scumbags have all signed on to this. They are not letting anybody go there. You can pay thousands of pounds to go to Antarctica, and just on the little tip on the peninsula there, you can go. You can go and see some penguins, you can go and do what you like. You are not going up on that thing, and you are not going where you're not supposed to go. It is patrolled militarily all the way around by the UN. There's also around our plane, as it were, there are 7 islands which are militarised that are all British, by the way, so it's us that is stopping people from going around independently. Now, if they did truly find the edge, surely there must be a top. What were the implications? Well, they did begin to find out with Operation Fishbowl, of all stupid things to be named. Operation Fishbowl was in 1962. They created this, I kid you not, that is the name. It was part of a series of tests under something called Project Dominic, and both America, Russia, and a few others were sending up massive kiloton missiles for 4 4 years. 4 whole years. Basically, I think they were mapping where the dome was. I'll play you this a little bit. It's a little bit of it. It gets a little bit annoying, so but it's just to show it was real.
Stripey XM33. 4.
I'm not going to bore you with it, it goes on about it, but it does tell you. Now, by the late 60s, space travel was firmly indoctrinated into the minds of the public. That brings us on to NASA. Right, the fake moon landings, anyone here still think the moon landing was real? Come on, one person? No? Right, good. Now, this is an enormous topic on its own. I'll try and condense it as best I can. Firstly, Freemasons and secret mystery schools are the real reasons why knowledge is kept from us. And if you had to be an astronaut in the day, you were selected and you had to be a Freemason. You were protecting knowledge and you were going to fool the world. Before we get into that, NASA was formed in 1958. Before that, it was part of something called JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, by this man, Jack Parsons. This man, and this man, anybody know this man? L. Ron Hubbard? Used to have ritual sex magic in the Nevada desert. They were off their nuts, but they were very, very evil people. They were both followers of this man, Aleister Crowley, probably the UK's world's biggest Satanist. He was part of something called the OTO, Order of Templis Orientis, or something. They used to summon demons, they used to do ritual sex magic. Horrible, horrible, horrible man. This man, Walt Disney, he also used to be a follower of George Crowley. So did that man, Werner von Braun. This is one of the guys I was talking to you about. Now, he was a good friend of Disney. Basically, Disney's for programming of kids. Very satanically, of course. You see the 666. You see some of the hidden stuff written on the walls. It's all hidden in plain sight, but you've got to be quick to get it. Disney's for programming evil for the kids, and NASA is for grown-ups. So NASA, there you go, Freemasonry. In Hebrew, the word NASA literally means all of those things. To deceive, utterly forget, to beguile. They're not stupid, they know what they're doing. For the lies. So there you go, this is the guys, obviously. They've just done man's greatest achievement. This is their press conference. How happy are they? They're about to lie to everybody really badly. Now, Buzz Aldrin, we all know him, admitted 33rd degree Freemason, hand gang sign, ring wearing numpty. Buzz Aldrin Jr. We have everyone else. Edgar Mitchell, he was a 33rd degree Freemason at the Artesta Lodge in New Jersey. James Irwin, Colorado Springs. Don Issel, Luther Turner, Virgil Grissom. Remember what happened to Virgil Grissom? He, when they were testing the lunar lander, he knew it wasn't going to work, same as everybody else. He put a lemon on it. He stuck a lemon on it because it's shit. He knew it was going to be rubbish. A couple of days later, they incinerated him and the 2 other people. Now, he was a Freemason. So when you're a Freemason and you go against it, remember what you're trying to lie about here. You can't have anyone that's going to say otherwise. So they killed him. Now, with the Apollo thing, a chap who did the entire head of NASA was a chap called Fred Kleineck. And shortly after the Apollo program, he was promoted to a 33 degree Freemason of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry for the Southern Jurisdiction. The same title as Albert Pike. I don't know if you know about Albert Pike. Go and research Albert Pike. It's very relevant to what's happening today. So everybody was a Freemason. All their fathers were Freemasons. You were about to lie to the world. Here they are. There's a few shots of them doing some nonsense. Hello, here I am. Some promo. Look at the rings. Look, here's me on a globe. Terrible. They look really happy there. But the sheer scale of it. This is Freemasonry. This is some kind of, God knows, ritual they were doing here. And if you notice their aprons are Freemason aprons, they're the same logo as Google Mail. Your Google Mail logo is a Freemason apron. And there you go. And look, they love their phallic symbols, they love their sexual innuendos. This is literally from NASA. This was their journey. This is what they did. Cock and balls around the moon. Terrible. Here they are, just having a little break on the moon, posing for a picture. And this is the best one. They're in a zero-G plane in 1969. That's Buzz. There's an entire film crew in front of him, and you've got a mock-up of the lunar lander behind him. Why? This is unbelievable. You ever seen the lunar lander? Ever had a look at it? Jesus, don't. This entire thing is like a really badly made shed. It has curtain rails. It has black paper. Look at these boards. Look. This is supposed to be space-proof. It probably wouldn't cope with the rain we're having. So, yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Now, if you've never looked into the power and the sheer evilness of Freemasonry, not the ones that are the local ones that cut your grass and you scratch my back and yours, when you're talking about the accepted Scottish and Yorkshire rite of Freemasonry, it's very, very satanic. You'll see it here. Freemason and First President. What's that all about? Shouldn't it be First President and maybe a Freemason? No, the control of Freemasonry is what it is. Here's some stonemasons at work manufacturing the globe in Studland. Belston, sorry, of all places. Okay, so from 1969 to 1972, the Freemasons at NASA claim to have landed 6 of their Apollo missions on the moon. Did you know that? They went backwards and forwards 6 times, apparently. So with a bit of ingenious deception, a bit of rocket technology from our man Werner von Braun, these bunch of lying Freemasons took photographs through a round window of a high-altitude plane, and with this one psyop, NASA managed to convince nearly everyone on Earth that they were living on this ball. However, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, which we're going to have a little watch.
And finally, the element that seals their fate. Of all the footage of Apollo 11 requested from NASA over a 5-year period, one gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr., and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance.
There you go. They're telling you what they've done. The other part of that video is you see them at the window with a piece of card trying to make that shape. The whole thing's a scam done from a high-altitude plane. Now, back to NASA. These are new NASA images. New NASA images of bottoms of frying pans. Hey, not those. These. Okay, these images, you can look at them. You can clearly see they are not real images. They are all different. The land masses in 2012, for example, makes America look enormous. Now, the fact is, in 2012, this man was responsible for creating the latest in a long line of these fake images, called the Blue Marble Earth shot in 2012. Now, there are many audio interviews with this guy explaining how things are done, but I will just put this bit here and read the bottom part. The hard part, he says, was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface. What we did was we wrapped a flat map around the ball. That's what he says. That's how you get your globe. Pretty much like this. That's what they did. You don't live on that. There you go, fairly explanatory. Now, when seen with a skeptical eye on most of the original photographs of the Apollo missions, you can't get them very much anymore, but you can clearly see cut and pastes, you can clearly see smudging imagery, and you can clearly see doctoring of original photographs. I've done it myself with images of satellites. If you can still find one, you can do them on your phone. Just bring up the contrast and the shadowing effect, and you see all the stuff behind it. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So, back to the moon. Here we go. Wasn't faked at all, but we made that with some runners. You can see here, you can see the trolleys that would have gone through on those runners. God knows what he's doing there. It was a big scam. The problem is the moon is translucent. It's a light. You couldn't land on it even if you wanted to. Now, if you look at the moon in the daytime, you can see the sky through it. The moon takes on the colour of the sky behind it. So if it's blue, you see blue through it. If it's grey, you see grey, etc., etc. Now, the moon is clearly not a spherical object either. It is not round. It must be some sort of disk. What you'll find in a full moon is you'll find equal light from edge to edge, all over. It's equal light. If it was a ball of any kind or a sphere, the way light works on a sphere is it hits a hot spot and then light fades off around it. Okay, that's just the way light works with it. So, you see here, many countries' flags depict perhaps the occulting of a star through the moon. Everybody seen this guy? So you can't go back to the moon. Do you know why?
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Yeah, he's a moron. He's a moron. He pretends to go to space. I wouldn't... sorry. Surely we must have some evidence of the moon landing. Surely. Man's greatest achievement. Apart from the lunar lander in the museum, apart from the shed in the museum, they destroyed or lost, supposedly, not just a couple of reels, 13,000 reels of supposed data, telemetry data, all gone, burned, didn't give a shit about it, gone. So, yeah, of course, Tom Petman says, I would go back, but we can't, because he's a moron. Lastly, with the moon, at some point, there's something else here. When are you ever going to get this lineup together? You've got Stanley Kubrick. We all know he made it. We all know he directed it. You've got Arthur C. Clarke, inventor of pretend satellites. You've got some astronauts. You've got some Apollo directors. One photograph, one place. No idea why. Dear, oh dear. Dear, oh dear. I want to tell you one thing about the moon first. The moon is a cold light. It does not reflect the sun, as you're taught. It's cold. It's got its own cold light. Go and get thermometers. Go and measure the moon shade and the moonlight. You'll see it's colder in the moonlight. If you get, when you was a kid and you got a magnifying glass with the sun and you burnt all those ants, you horrible people, if you do it with the moon, it becomes colder. You magnify cold coming out of the moon. It's insane. Nobody knows that. When you're a flat earther, you hit that one and you go, really? And it's testable and repeatable. We've done it many times. Do it yourself. Get 2 thermometers, place one in the moon shade, take one in the moonlight, it's colder. The faking in space is fundamental to make you believe you are in a pretend universe with a big bang, aliens, another 100 billion planets just like you. You are not special. You're just an insignificant spot. Turns out, we're not. Now, NASA and the space agencies control the sky, and everybody else controls the side. They had to fake space to hide the dome or the roof, and they had to make the Antarctic Treaty to hide the edge. We are in an enclosed environment, somehow. We breathe pressurized air. It's 14 psi at the equator, that's what you're breathing. Somehow, this is a contained place. I don't know how big it is, but it's definitely contained. 1986 we're on to now. Space shuttle disaster, oh no! It was viewed by millions of people watched this. I'm talking, I can't remember what the official figures were, but they were loads. They all died. They all died. Bless them. Did they, bugger? Right, 2 female crew members, specifically Judith Rensick and Sharon McAuliffe. They're alive and well today, teaching in universities in America using the same names. It's not funny, they're still using their same names. Don't forget, we do suffer as a people. We are very bad with where you forget things. They do a process and we become comfortable with it after a while. We're not all up at Parliament chopping off the heads of the people that we don't like. We're not trying to actively go after Bill Gates. None of us are doing that, so we become very complicit in what we do. Back in 1980s, a whole generation would have forgotten it. Now we can just lie about it easy. Richard Sobey is an MD of a marketing company called Cows in Trees. Still about, same people. This is insane, right? NASA used to fake it 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even today. This is how they did it in the 80s with the space shuttle.
That was basically our arrangement. Dan sat in the pilot seat during this operation, sort of monitoring the motion of the vehicle, making sure that it was steady and that there were very few vibrations of any sort. Here's a picture of the INSAT actually being deployed from the spacecraft.
One more time. Did you see it?
Dan sat in the pilot seat during this operation.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen, and this was a live broadcast,
motion of the
by the
vehicle,
way.
making sure that it was steady and that there were very few.
He pops up here, look.
vibrations of any sort.
That's a model, it's a
Picture
really
of the
bad
INSAT,
model. It's a terrible model, in
actually being
fact.
deployed from
He
the
realised he was in it, he
spacecraft.
tried to hide, he thought, sod it, I'm in it
Deployment
anyway.
went very smoothly.
But don't panic. 1988 sees the construction of the ISS. There is no footage of its construction at all, anywhere. No footage exists of it at all. NASA's finest men, look at them. There they are. They're in charge of space. Don't know what that thing is there, honestly. But look at them, they're very clever. Look at the windows. This is how good space is. Window, 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 open. It's open. The window's open on the ISS. No. There it is. Ridiculous. But don't panic, this man has a key. He must be in charge, right? If you read that sign, you can't see, it says keep closed, keep windows closed, unless you're taking pictures. Or you don't want to be sucked out at a vacuum of space that doesn't exist. This is some of NASA's finest work. Original, you'll see there, they did the Earth and then they forgot about it. They give up. They give up with the rest of it. This is another one, NASA's finest, going to do some proper repairs, really important job. But he couldn't put his shoes on properly, because he's a knob. And you've got things here. I think these are like plasters. I think they're plasters, I'm not sure. Absolutely, the whole thing is a joke, and it's a shame. NASA themselves will tell you, the same as the FBI, CIA, MI5, MI6, every single alphabet agency has flat Earth literature. NASA themselves have flat Earth literature, and in one of their documents, a report about linear aircraft, it says, if you're coming into land, you have to assume it is flat and non-rotating. And I'm thinking, how come? They got that space shuttle coming in, surely they'd have to line it up, but apparently not. So, there you go. Absolute joke. There are hundreds and thousands of documents. There's a couple of videos where you can go and see, particularly on the app. Anybody got the app? You've got the app? Whatever? No, you should have. So the concluding remarks, like I said, from a linearized system, matrices, or a rigid aircraft, has to be over a stationary atmosphere, over a flat, non-rotating Earth. It's their words, not mine. Okay, these guys must sort it, right? These guys were doing a live link via, not satellite, to a school. And then one of the questions was, can you do anything to show and make sure you're in space? Of course we can. Of course we can.
I don't know, we're going to have to do something
we're gonna
for
have to
you.
do something. Don't touch the wire. Don't pull the wire. Whatever you do, don't pull it. Don't touch
Oh
it.
yeah, I can do that. Watch this. Oh yeah, I can do that. Oh
touch it.
yeah, I can do that.
Don't. Okay. Fairly obvious. This is in the
Oh yeah, I can do
early
that.
90s. This is in the early 90s, obviously. Crazy stuff.
We all had hair like that.
We all had hair like that, that's true. But the woman's hair like that didn't move at all. She was up there drastically trying to pull the wires from the pulleys
It
out.
was very strong hairspray back in the day.
Very good. Now, this is amazing. This is bringing it more up to date in how they fool you. This is with virtual reality and green screen layers. This is insane. It's quite a long one, but we'll get to it. They're talking, if you look in the back, what they've done is as they've been doing it, they forget sometimes. NASA forget, they are rubbish at it. He's still left his harness on. So the layer screen to block out the harness was clearly not happening in any way, shape or form. That's nothing compared to what happens in a minute, which is absolutely insane. You're going to have to go through this and go through it all, I'm afraid. Now, in the background, in a minute, you're going to see a guinea pig. There he is, you see it? They've thrown they've got a guinea pig up in space, and B, they're just throwing it about. It's actually some sort of satanic ritual thing, which I looked into, but I can't quite remember what it was about. But the best bit with virtual reality layers is you can cock it up. Remember, this was live. Here, take the microphone. Thanks. Oh, shit. Take the hat even, anything you like. This guy's face is in terror. They look at a virtual layer screen. He is looking at a virtual reality. That hat in reality is not there. Or the microphone or something isn't there. In his virtual reality world, he's going to pick it up and put it away. He couldn't do it. And the terror in his eyes, when you look in his eyes, it's absolutely terrifying. That's how they fool you now with virtual reality and layers of green screens. This is another prime example. 3 finest morons. Green screen. Everything else is still there, right? You can see what the green screen layer is. And they wet themselves and cut straight back to thing. There are hours and hours and hours and hours of NASA cock-ups like that. So many, there's millions. I'll leave you some notes of where you can find them. Bear with. Right. Coming to the end, a couple of things. Stars, a few things you may want to consider. They're not suns. They're just twinkling lights of energy that some, I believe, are all within the firmament, within our own system. When we send up weather balloons at 120,000 feet, at about 60,000 feet, you can't see the stars anymore. I have no idea why, but you can't see them. We think they're embedded in the firmament moves, creates the electric charge, etc., etc. I can't tell you, that's just my thoughts. So stars and planets are not suns and nothing else, they are lights in the sky. This is, I can't remember what this one is, but you can see how they moved, what they are. They are very godly, they are beautiful things, whatever they are. Some people say they're souls, some people say they're angels. I have no idea what stars are. This is Capella. Unbelievable piece of footage compared to our sun. That's how big it's supposed to be compared to our sun. I think Copernicus has lied a lot there. Oh, bit of music. That's incredible, isn't it? That is absolutely incredible. That's what a star is. We don't know what they are. They are energy points of light in the sky. This is also an incredible one. This is Vega. This is a star Vega. Takes a bit of a while. Come on. I think the cameraman's had a few. It's mesmerising. It literally is mesmerising. That's Vega. Saturn, again, none of these are, there are opaque lights in the sky. None of these are great big planets, not at all. Now the killer, the absolute nailed on killer for the globe is that we can see too far. We can see far too far than they tell us we could. They tell us that the circumference of the Earth is 24,901 miles, and like I say, there's an 8 inches per squared drop off. So 10 miles, there's a 66-foot drop. So if you see something that's 50 foot, 10 miles away, you shouldn't see it at all. You should not see it at all. Problem is with that, we have something every year called the longest photography competition. It currently stands at 800 miles. Okay, the curvature for that is 50, 60 miles. You should have a curvature rate of 50 or 60 miles, let alone be able to see anything 800 miles in front of you. This, of course, is the calculation. 40 miles, 50 miles, 1,000 feet drop. 800 miles, well, 1,000 miles is too much. 128 miles of curvature that you don't see. You don't see it at all. There is no curvature. There's no test or measurement for curvature. You have to remember that. Now, obviously, a lot of this stuff, these meetings, we use, sometimes we use this app. It's the best app you can have for Flat Earth. It has all of the uncensored videos that were censored in 2018. It has an area where you can find Flat Earth friends in your local area. It is amazing. What's this? Oh, hello, yes, bit of graphics. It's got everything, friend finder, video chats, books, images. It's the best resource for a flat earther. Completely. Now, lastly, Werner von Braun, grandfather of rocketry technology, Psalms 19:1. They always, I feel that they have this Kabbalah karmic thing where they have to tell you everything. They have to tell you everything via signs and symbols or code or whatever, you have to work it out. Psalms 19:1 is the glory of God showeth his handiwork within the firmament. That's coming from him. So that is it. That's where we are. That's what happens. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, there was one. Sorry.
Sorry?
One I picked up the other day because I've been reading stuff, and it was saying, somebody was saying about the sun.
Yeah.
If you believe the globe model and it's in the sky and it's a star and it's burning, whether it's burning gas or whatever. But apparently all the atmosphere is down on Earth. You can't get fire, can you, without oxygen?
True.
Yeah.
True, yeah. If it was a big ball of gas, it wouldn't be in a vacuum because there's no air.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's another proof of stupidity.
Yeah, not a question, just a little
No.
on my mind.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sam?
Thank you. So, yeah, with the idea of the puddle theory, that there's different
Sorry.
that there's different realms that
Yeah.
have all got their, and we're just living in one of these realms. So what happens with the firmament? Are there loads of little firmaments over all of these different
We
ones?
don't know, Sam. We don't know. That's the point. We don't know. The only things we do know for sure is that it doesn't spin, it's not a globe, and it doesn't move. And they are lying like hell to keep it from us knowing these things. There's a couple of theories as far as the way our plane is done. In the middle of our North Pole, some people say that that is a depressed puddle. We live in a depressed puddle. Antarctica is the highest land. Antarctica is the highest land of any land on our Earth. So if we're in the middle, it would make sense for the Antarctic land to be at the outside, and then it will go up. That's what keeps all your oceans in. That's what keeps your waters here. They also think sometimes in the North Pole that is also depressed, and there is another one of us in the North Pole. But again, we're not precluded to find out, sadly. So, and some people think that perhaps Mars, Saturn, and all those planets would be the suns and the moons of these outer realms. I don't think that's the case, but That's what's postulated. So. Anybody else? Yes. Yes.
It's not one of these that works, is it? One thing I'm going to mention is that it's important to remember that everything that we do in terms of navigation, everything is always flat. It's not perhaps sometimes, it's always navigated flat. The military navigate flat, everybody navigates flat. What they do is they use something called a Haversine formula where they convert those numbers into globe mathematics for our benefit, for our consumption. And I've never heard of the Haversine formula until I got into this whole global thing and doing a bit more research over it. So the sextant, for example, that Ian mentioned earlier, and all navigation ever is always carried out based on a flat plane. It has to be, because you're plotting your position on it, and it only works with stars and angle measurements and such like. You can't have a curved surface for that. That's all I wanted to say.
No, absolutely correct. The world is measured flat by every measuring agency. It's always done flat. All these land surveyors, always flat. And like Sven said, all celestial navigation is done on a flat plane. You cannot measure and get a GP to a star without having a flat baseline to make the triangle. You can't do it. So you know, celestial navigation and measurement of this plane is always flat. So there you go. Any more? Any more questions? Over there. Oh.
Is it working? Yeah. Can you?
Can I comment
Astrology
on
and perhaps UFOs?
Okay.
What do you have to say about that?
Astrology, yes. Astrology, ancient Chinese astrology is fully real. It uses the luminaries correctly. Billionaires. Give me that. Sam, have you got that on the mic? Billionaires use astrology. Millionaires don't. Every point of light in the sky is an energy form, and it has an effect on us. If they were 1 billion trillion miles away, it would make no difference to us, but they do make a difference to us. Chinese and good astrology, not astronomy, not Dear Deirdre or whatever it is you read, pure astrology is a real science. It's a divine science. So yeah. UFOs? No. If there are UFOs, they don't come from up there. They can't. It's literally impossible. Could they come from outer lands, extraterrestrials? Yeah, of course they could. Do we know if there's extra land? No, we don't. But it's very plausible that it could be. So. Any more for any more? Or would you all like to get a drink and call it a day? Right, I'll call it a that. I want a drink, yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope we give you a little bit. If you want any other stuff, give me a shout. And Beer. Thank you.
Trying to get
It could be, he's a little genius. His mummy's a little genius, so Did either of you hold it? Did either of you hold it? Randy! Randy!